Welcome to Rip It Up, the Renovations podcast.
In between full episodes, we are going to be fielding listener questions about their renovation. So if you've got a burning question, send us a voice note at Rip It Up Podcast Official on Instagram, or send us an email at ripitupearlybird@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the podcast. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Jen.
How's it going? We've a short one. We're into our listener questions. Guys, we love you sending in your questions. Thank you so much for everyone who sent them in. We'll put the links in the show note. You can email us, or you can DM us on Instagram, either voice note or just send us a message, whatever you prefer. All right, let's get into it.
I got one this week, and it's one I've actually gotten a lot, because I think a couple of years ago I did one of those Instagram videos where I just showed people how to make cafe curtains, and people went nuts for it. So this is the question. Hi, Kate, I love your house and I've been following for years and listened to the podcast. I'm hoping you can offer some advice. I have an ensuite to the front of my house, which opens onto a balcony through a tilt and turn door. We elected not to go for frosted glass, but I need window treatment. Blinds and shutters don't make sense, as it's a door and needs to be opened. I was thinking sheer curtains like your cafe curtain, but I was wondering, do they still offer privacy at night when the lights are on inside? Thanks. So,
great question.
It is a great question, and I get it so much because I, for one, hate frosted glass. I hate the privacy glass that comes as standard on windows. So I don't know, do you want to give your 2 cents and I'll give mine?
So yeah, and I loved your cafe curtains. There's just something very very dreamy about cafe curtains, isn't there? In a bathroom or something, they're really nice. And I've gotten this question a good few times as well on News Talk, kind of from people who are looking for ways to brighten up a room but keep privacy, and don't need to kind of move curtains or move leaves out of the way. So I don't mind frosted glass, but I only like a very kind of plain frosting or reeded frosting. Yeah, those are my 2 preferences. And I do have frosted glass in my upstairs bathroom door, because there's no window in that bathroom and the light needs to come in from the hallway, so it does a good job of doing that. But I also love your cafe curtains.
Yeah, like frosting still gets rid of some of the light that you get through, probably blocks about 20% of the light or diffuses it so it doesn't seem as bright. The other option is reeded glass. Obviously, there's not very many window places putting in reeded glass. And I did reeded glass in my last bathroom, but on old sash windows. So I didn't want to put in the reeded glass because I wasn't 100% sure. And I also didn't know if I wanted it vertically or horizontally. So I went off and I bought reeded glass film from a place called EU Glassfilms. I think there's another Irish site called Coatek. I haven't used them, but that was a fantastic option, and it's so realistic. The film is not just a fake kind of print, it's kind of a 3D film. It's pricey for what you get, but it's worth it. I think it's worth getting the more expensive films if you want to do films. Super easy to install. You just need a sharp blade, kind of a spray bottle, a squeegee. So that's a great option if you want.
And you can take it off, crucially. If you don't like it, if you get sick of reeded glass, rip it right off.
And
that's
there's
key.
a million different types, like narrow reading, fat reading. There's like antiqued glass, which I think is quite cool at the moment.
Yeah.
And just that slightly wobbly kind of antiqued glass. If you don't want to commit to the real glass in your windows, this is a great interim option. And no one ever asked me, was it not reeded glass? Like, you would be absolutely convinced unless you went up and inspected the corners and tried to peel them away. So that's a great option if you don't want to go frosted or in the actual glass.
You can even do stained glass with those films if you wanted to.
Yeah.
If you really wanted to, you could try something out.
Yeah, leaded glass and stained glass and stuff. There's options for that as well. There's some hideous ones too, but there's some really cool ones. Actually, they've come a long way. They're not as old fashioned as they used to be. And then cafe curtain, I love them. I did them in my bedroom last time. I did them in my front front room, which is an ensuite, and we had huge sash windows into an ensuite. So people were like, how are you going to do privacy there? So I did just the bottom half of the sash, actually. You usually don't need the top half, at least in sash windows, because just the perspective for viewing, no one can see. They're looking at the ceiling when they
especially
look
if it's upstairs. Yeah.
Unless you're directly overlooked opposite you at that height, people can't really see in that one. And usually, at least in my windows, the top height of sash, all people would see is your head anyway.
And how often are you standing anyway? Like, unless you're in your kitchen, most rooms in your house, you're probably sitting down or lying down most of the time. So
yeah,
this doesn't really need
exactly. So like, think about perspective and what you actually need to block. And then when you're getting cafe curtains, obviously you can go to kitchen or curtain places or blind places and get them made. And they're super expensive, but you could do that. I've kind of made mine, and they're actually super easy to make. Net curtain wire. I don't even buy the poles because the net curtain wire is invisible. It just hides in the seam of the cafe curtain. You can't see it. can't see the little hooks. It's just
And how do you
invisible.
install that? You just put 2 little hooks on either end?
They're
Yeah.
literally twisted by hand, tiny little hooks on either end. Then you feed the wire through the neck curtain. You cut it
Lovely.
short of the window so you kind of stretch it taut and hook them on either ends. It's so easy. You'll get like 3, 4, 5 meters of the stuff with all the hooks on Amazon for like pittance, like a couple of euros. And then to make the cafe curtain, I have found a new favorite. It used to always be Ikea Hilja that I used, Hilja. But the more recently, the Stockholm one, you know, that Stockholm range they do in Ikea, the kind of expensive range. They kind of release a certain number of items. So there's the Stockholm.
It's a little bit more tightening, a bit more texture.
It is, and it's more linen-y looking. Like there's no shine on it. Like I think if you go for the cheapy ones, they look cheap. They're like pure brilliant white, and they're like shiny, and they're like a voile, you know. A voile you want to kind of avoid. They look super cheap. So I go for the Hilja, which is a nice matte one, but it's a finer weave. And then the Stockholm one in Ikea is a lovely kind of linen-y texture. And what I do is I use one of the seams that are already on it, or the hems, cut the squares, and then either do iron-on hemming on the sides or whatever. If you have a sewing machine, great. Like
when you say iron-on hemming, is that like the Wundaweb stuff?
Yeah, Wundaweb. Yeah. Any of that iron-on kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Stick down the edges to get a nice crisp edge on the sides, and the same for the seam on the bottom. Like if you have a sewing machine out, great. You can run a quick line of sewing on it. But if you don't need, like a proper pocket for another wire on the bottom, you could just do the iron-on hemming all the way to the edge. But I've done taut on the bottom and taut on the top on some windows, which is handy for a window you need to open and close. So this
taut on the bottom, you have the wire in the bottom.
Yeah, the same net curtain wire goes on the top and on the bottom. And the reason I'm saying that is this lady specifically asked, the door needs to open. So the blind needs to kind of be fixed to the door. Obviously, you could have the end loose, just blowing, but it's a bit annoying then if you're closing the door and it's getting caught. So you can do the net curtain wire just on the top, or you can do it top and bottom. And when you have it top and bottom, you can kind of gather the fabric as much or as little as you want, you know, depending on the level of privacy you want and the amount of light you want to keep coming through. So I think that's a great option. It's actually so easy to do. Like it sounds like, oh my God, I can't make curtains, but it's not making curtains. You're using a bit of Wundaweb, and all you need is a snips to snip the wire short, and all the other little hooks twist in by hand. You don't even need tools for it really. So that would be my.
You probably could even just use a really small tension rod if you wanted to.
You could,
Like if even screwing in the hooks was a bit much, and you weren't sure like of the positioning or something.
You can, you can actually get tension rods specifically for this, for cafe curtains. I just think they tend to add a little bit of bulk sometimes. But if you have a huge open space, you won't notice it. But for this person who wanted it fixed on the door itself, I think something like net curtain wire is probably the tidiest option. So a great example where I did this in my current house, my bath in the ensuite is in an oriel window, like, or in a kind of a bay window, a first floor bay window. And it's surrounded by slashed windows. And people were like, how are you going to have a bath there, you know? Because I said I didn't want frosted glass. So only the bottom sashes I've done fixed cafe curtains, you know, which is the net curtain wire. And it gives such a lovely, soft, I used that Ikea curtain as well that I mentioned, the Stockholm one. It's such a lovely diffused light. But still, I have the top half completely clear. I can see the kind of trees up high or whatever, but no one can see in those windows. And it's just, I think it's the perfect balance. I mean, obviously, there's all these options for vertical blinds and plantation shutters, but like I think a lot of these, you know,
they really block a lot of light.
They block a lot of light. Yeah, they do. And I think a lot of the time when you're putting in a door, you're putting in a window, it's probably to keep the light in that space. So for me, they're not for me unless you have an abundance of light and huge windows in your house.
Yeah. I think they're beautiful. I love that there's not that many opportunities to like bring fabric into your bathroom for good reason, right? Because bathrooms are not really fabric friendly. But especially with a bath, like the addition of just that lovely little bit of like light, sheer, floaty fabric just adds so much warmth, a little bit of movement. It diffuses the light in such a pretty way. All for it.
Yeah. The little how-to on how to make them is up on my page as well if anyone wants to go look at it.
Okay, we'll put a link to that into the show notes.
Yeah, but they would be my 2 cents. That's what I've done. Really glass films and nice soft cafe curtains.
And they're both super simple things to do yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
Go for it. Do it this weekend. All right. Thank you for your questions. You can send more to us at by email at ripitupearlybird@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram. It's ripitup_podcast_official on Instagram. We'll put the links in the show notes.
Or both our pages.
Or both our pages. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.